Thank you all for being here. It's been 15 years since the establishment of the Scottish Deep End Project, and it's been 5 years since we last had an in-person event.
Then there were 5 Deep End projects, now there are 17. The 17 are all different, big and small, established and new, but they all have common themes, especially the determination to make a difference.
But unfortunately, there is a pervasive belief that for many people help isn't coming.
My colleague, Stuart Mercer, he described what happens in deep end consultations. Less time, reduced expectations, less enablement, poorer outcomes, greater GP stress.
The health service is run down, then political leaders who should know better but clearly don't, they start subtly or not so subtly trying to blame the clinicians and the nurses, the people that are actually acting as the sellotape that's holding not just the health service together but the whole country.
I do not know that you can care well within an industrial setup. There is no adapting to a system that has misunderstood the assignment.
I think that's a painful fact that we probably have to acknowledge, that everything's bad. Everything's difficult, perhaps, is a better way of putting it.
So that gets the conference off to a cheery little start.
So I'm going to move on to some slightly more practical things. I want to talk about enshittification. That basically, if you make things a bit rubbish, then you can privatise them. And what I would say is they have been wildly successful, haven't they?
I'm going to talk to you about low-threshold, high-fidelity general practice. You'll probably all know it instinctively because you probably all practice it anyway.
So I'm going to talk about missing this.
It's the repeated tendency not to take up opportunities for care, such that it has a negative impact on the person and their life chances.
Learning pretty early on that connecting and attaching is dangerous and to be avoided is really, really problematic. The term I suppose I've tried to coin for this is relational injury, smashed trust, if you like.
When you go to a service that stops you entering, you are just re-traumatising the traumatised person. When I'm in a waiting room and I see a security guard get angry because someone is losing it, we know the person they're kicking out is the person who's most likely to be found dead in the next number of years. So they're the people who most need our healthcare.
Patients with long-term mental health conditions missing more than 2 appointments per year had an 8 times risk of all-cause mortality. And really importantly, that was compared with patients with similar diagnoses who hadn't missed appointments. Even we were shocked by this.
It's not a trivial relationship, the healthcare relationship. It really gets to the most primitive anxieties we have about what it is to be a vulnerable human being needing someone else. The injury means they cannot climb those relational stairs.
There's a huge amount of evidence to show that access to care improves health outcomes. And it's not just about access to care, it's about sticking with them, being faithful to them.
I might argue that the continuity of care for some people is the treatment, the provision of stability, continuity of care over time. And for some people it may be lifelong.
The focus of my presentation is really about a humanly sustainable healthcare, and I always place both clinicians and patients on the same side of the equation.
So my talk today, I guess, is starting to think about how do we learn to do relational practice if we're agreed that it's so important.
In lots of settings, good work is being done. In homelessness and alcohol and drug recovery, really positive changes have been made to try and ensure that people are visible and engaged and services are actually set up to meet people's needs. But we've got a long way to go.
To achieve change, the best allies are downwards and sideways to local communities, their representatives.
The GP practice is the hub of any community. Before us, they're really then outward facing.
There's people doing stuff in our communities already, in their own communities, and it's how we find and support them.
Chance to change in a boot to get into partnership with Chest Heart and Stroke Scotland. The whole group will be trained up as volunteer healthcare practitioners, and I'm thrilled to tell you this idea came from one of my members.
It's about opening their eyes and being open-minded to try new things to get different results, because they're just used to coping mechanisms like drugs, their anger.
I think we can't underestimate the hope it gives people to see somebody like Fraser who is just like some of these guys coming in crisis but has got better.
It has changed my life, really changed my life.
Yeah, I could keep you here all day telling you many stories of success and peer support, but I hope you're starting to see the value and that people build, develop and recover people quicker than any magic pill.
At the end of the day, People still need to be able to see doctors, and they don't just need to be able to see doctors, they need to see doctors that they feel are listening to them, doctors that they feel care.
Everyone in this room, we're pretty much on the same page. But we've got to get out and actually get our colleagues alongside us as well. There are problems with getting them to engage with this at all, and particularly engage with inclusion health groups. They don't have that social conscience.
So we had funding to deliver a workshop programme for 45 community nurses and midwives in primary care. The programme evaluation showed that the participants felt seen, and they also felt supported to be able to mobilise hope and some realistic practical interventions.
Politicians all over the world respond to two things related to healthcare. One is access, the other one is cost. Continuity increases the productivity of the clinicians and prevents people from continuously going back to the back of the queue. Both will have a positive impact on access and cost.
The systems need to be set up where that relationship with clinicians is actually front and centre of what we do. And it is in some places, but it's not in lots.
One of the most common responses, I think, hands up, me too, is just to think, God, there's nothing we can do here. It's just, there's too much. It's just impossible. I just have to switch off, get through the day. But actually, psychodynamic theory provides a bit of hope that the repetition of even small things can actually be helpful. Something can be done in the face of overwhelming levels of need with relatively modest resources and costs, and with tangible impacts on the practitioner.
I think all of those talks align very closely with the themes of the conference, which are hope, kindness, advocacy and inclusivity. And then of course, the Ceilidh last night brought us the joy.
We send forward a massive cheer!
I'm conscious of time, but I know that all the GPs in the room will be very comfortable with running late.
Solidarity has been and is an important achievement, connecting often otherwise isolated colleagues with similar values and aspirations.
And the other reason that we're really all here today, which is to connect with each other, to inspire each other and to continue to create that community of practice and peer support, which has been such a big part of the Deep End movement.
What I really need to get from this conference is how do you keep doing it? How do you keep getting up and plugging away?
It's the patience, I think, is the key. That's what actually gives you the buzz.
It's that last patient that I saw yesterday that I felt I did something positive and helpful for, and my colleagues.
Yeah, agreed. And I'd probably add strong coffee and loud music as well.
I think things like this, hearing from other people that make you feel like you're not mad or alone particularly.
Thank you for all the work that you do. It's rather audacious of someone like me to do anything but be humble in the face of your expertise, your work ethic, your persistence in the face of the utter contempt that's been shown you by leaders all across this country.
I know we can't wait for the charging horses to bring in change, but there's quiet revolutions going on, and so there is a positive message here today.
As Margaret Mead said, never forget that a small group of committed people can change the world. Indeed, it's the only thing that ever has.
This is supposed to be difficult, I think. The work of justice is difficult. The work of peace. I mean, it's difficult, Nora. What would you rather do?